Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast. I am excited today to welcome Arun Lal to the podcast. Arun is a seasoned marketing executive. He's been in the industry for a long time, 20 plus years. He's been working across B2B SaaS, AI, infrastructure, all the things, basically all the things that I've been doing. It's been a roller coaster the last 20, 25 years. So it's fun to meet fellow partners in crime that are going through that. So currently he's the VP of marketing at DocketAI, and there he's responsible for driving brand awareness, go-to-market strategy, and all that entails. So I'm excited to talk to Arun and hear the way he's helping to use marketing to build and grow audiences, engage audiences through communities and through projects and work that he's doing at Docket. So welcome, Arun. Glad to have you.
Super excited to be here, Kelly. Very excited.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Where'd you come from? What's your career journey, maybe in 3-4 sentences? How'd you get here?
Sure. Let's talk about that. So interestingly enough, I trained as an architect and then I found out how much they got paid and very quickly made the switch to tech. Started my career as a product manager at Microsoft. I spent about 10 years doing product management on Dynamics CRM, the Office suite, and so on and so forth. And then moved on to product marketing. I mean, I got a chance to attend some business school classes and I got exposed to marketing at Kellogg. And as a result, I made the switch to product marketing and found it absolutely fascinating. I always wanted to be close to the business. So then started my career as a product marketer. That lasted another 6 or 7 years. And so spent time at VMware, Climate, and a few other companies. And then started my own entrepreneurial journey as a startup founder at a company called Contique. And I've been doing startups since then. And now I get the opportunity to lead all marketing at a startup, which is DocketAI, which is doing some very interesting and groundbreaking stuff. So very excited to be at this juncture in my career.
Very cool. Really quick, what year did you graduate from Kellogg?
This was 2007.
Ah, my husband graduated from Kellogg in 2005, I think.
I see. I was in the exec program, so
gotcha.
So I was not doing it full time.
Gotcha. Yeah, he did it full time because he was coming out of the Army. He was at West Point and then did 5 years. And then when he got out, he went into business school to kind of figure out where he wanted to go. But I love your journey. I love hearing that path because I think about, like, I have my oldest right now is a junior and kind of working on that path and looking at trying to go in playing college football, which is great. But then that's his only focus. So when we say, what do you want to actually do? He's like, I don't know, I want to play college football. And I'm like, no, you got to actually like pick a major. So I love your path from architect to product management to product marketing and then into sort of founder and now working in different organizations or startup organizations. So it's quite a journey. What was the inspiration that kind of you think took you there? Do you love building? Do you love storytelling? Like, what's kind of your passion?
My passion is building, just being very creative and building things and bringing something new to the world. Taking that sort of different approach to reimagining things. That's what I enjoy the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and a lot of times you don't, especially in bigger, more established companies, you can build all the time. There's always something to build or fix. But reimagining and things sometimes has a little bit cleaner landscape, less baggage brought along when you're kind of coming into an organization early in its tenure.
Totally agree. I mean, I've worked at big companies and I had to. I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I had to pay my immigrant tax to get my green card for 10 years at Microsoft. That's the reason I stuck there that long. But I mean, it's a fantastic company, and so is VMware, both great companies, but there's only so much you can do in a big organization. Like you can't really, I think the real creative stuff is really happening in startups and in entrepreneurship. So I completely agree. The landscape and what you have to play with is so much wider and broader here.
Yeah, it's also hard to to touch and feel the stuff. I made a change. I started out in big enterprise too, and I've slowly worked, I think, almost progressively. Each company is smaller and smaller until I went so small, like a series A to B, and I was like, that's not quite me. So I came back now to a little bit later stage at Demand Base, and it's been a great move. But I went smaller and smaller because I felt like there was a time when I was doing marketing by PowerPoint. Like I was like, my job is just to build PowerPoint slides. It's not actually to run marketing campaigns. Like I'm building campaign strategies and structures, but like I forgot when I activated a marketing campaign or when I like participated in an actual webinar or, all the things. And so now I feel like I'm back with my hands in marketing at the right level. But yeah, sometimes you have to get out of the big organizations to feel it again. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, tell me about what you typically do in these startup environments. A lot of what I know your consistency, the thread through there is really about building communities in some of these organizations. What does that look like?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about communities. I'm very passionate broadly about collaborative marketing or working directly with customers. And community is very based on what the business objective is for the company. And then you have to set up communities that sort of support those business goals. So, for example, let me take an example of like VMware. VMware had these massive communities, and they were really trying to deepen the adoption, or if they were trying to launch a new product, then build momentum around it. And in these big companies, so VMware's customer base was so big, so you're not really doing any it's really no new ARR creation. It's really expansion. And that's the big motion, and really working through very complex issues around how do you build operational excellence, and how do you operate a very complex piece of software within a matrix organization, and what's the change looks like, and working very collaboratively with customers on how to bring about that transformation. So in big companies, the focus is very different. Now where I am in startups, very smaller companies, the focus is very different. It's really all about, broadly speaking, product market fit. But I don't like the term product market fit because I think it just abstracts away a lot of stuff that needs to go, especially in B2B marketing. And I think I look at product market fit in 3 steps or 3 components. The first stage is just figuring out your positioning and messaging fit. And the outcome of that fit is that you can sustainably and predictably create demand or pipeline. The next stage is, I've been in situations where you can create a lot of pipeline, but it doesn't close. So the next stage of fit really involves, the sales product fit. So that's the second step. And then there's the actual product market fit, which actually doesn't instantiate almost 1 year down the road until the time of renewal comes, because that's when you truly find out if you have product market fit. So I broadly think about product market fit across those 3 buckets. And the way I see communities helping is across all 3. At this stage, we've got a community that's helping us decide on positioning and messaging. And we're going out with this approach around outcomes-based messaging and just figuring out what outcomes do buyers really care about. And having that discussion internally with that community of buyers is very, very helpful. In fact, that cuts down all the time that you're going in meetings and getting shot down or learning through actually being in the sales process. With a good community feedback across maybe 2 or 3 sessions, you can cut down that learning time quite dramatically. So that's one area. The other thing is just in terms of sales market fit, it's really like what's driving the purchase? Where's the exact pain? Where's the budget coming from? What's the mandate that's driving the purchase? Getting those things clarified and having some honest conversations about your community is amazing, because one, they get vested in the whole process, and then they start co-creating with you. They're like, hey, this is what's needed to close the deal. Or I think this is a better budget center to go after. Or this is a better use case to go after if you want to close the deal. And then product market fit is obviously very important. And that really involves working deeply with the users of the product, not so much with the buyers, and making sure that they're actually deriving value. So that's why I have essentially a buyer community that helps me with deciding or like de-risking the buying process. And then we've got a user community, which is helping with value creation. So that's how I think about communities. is for early stage companies.
I love that. I love that. The buyer group, I mean, I guess we think about buying committees a lot on our side, but the buying group profile, the use cases, that kind of thing. And then you think the user groups and the actual practitioners who are in the product every day, and how do we help them be more successful? Interesting. I love that. You mentioned, I want to just clarify in case anybody else is like, sort of, I've never heard that term, or what does that mean? You mentioned sales product fit. Are you talking about, I assume you're not talking about sellers as buyers. You're talking about your own internal sales force being fit to sell your product. Is that an enablement play? Is that the right profile of sellers to sell your product? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's what it means. Essentially, like, can your company actually close the deal? So, like, for example, in the first stage, the outcome is, can you sustainably generate pipeline? And then in the second stage, can your sales team actually close the pipeline that's being created at a healthy win rate of, let's say 20% plus? That's what you're shooting for. And that requires a lot of back and forth. Like, hey, would you need to see a business case? There's so many aspects, especially in complex B2B sales, and especially with AI products. Nobody knows how to sell an AI product. But we've been successful with companies like you, like Demandbase. We found a use case which was high paying and already had a little bit of budget assignment to it. And that became essentially a landing spot for a lot of our deals. So just knowing that use case and the budget to go after, and then going after the right decision maker, that took a lot of iterations. And sometimes the community can help you with that. And that's what we learned. And here's the best thing: once you have these engaged group or this community, buyers, they become your best advertising channel. They tell their peers, and you keep getting more deals from them. Peers are the most trustworthy source for like driving buying behavior. So really capitalizing on that is very important. The fact of the matter is that people are talking about your products, whether you like it or not. The whole idea of one directional marketing is absolutely over. Like, where I write a messaging document and I expect the whole world to know my messaging. That's what's happening. What's happening is that within these communities, the buyers are having discussions about your product. The best hope you have is that, can you influence these conversations by embedding yourselves in these communities and these conversations in the right way, so you can frame the conversation. I think that's the sort of the new nature of marketing. So I think this is probably the biggest shift. I mean, it's been going on for like 15 years since the launch of the internet and communities, but the more prescriptive and surgical you can be in designing these conversations and embedding them and creating a lot of value for your buyers, I don't see any other or better way of driving behavior change or market adoption, especially of new products.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really, really helpful and very, very insightful. I love this idea of sales product fit. I love the idea of sort of even bifurcating your communities into these certain sort of almost use cases of communities. And I think that goes a long way. But one thing you brought up in there, and we'll open up that sort of giant Easter egg that is AI. So you mentioned about trying to sell AI. It seems like everybody these days just can't get enough of it. I feel like I'm in this camp, if I'm really honest, of, I won't call it skepticism. I'm a total believer. I'm on the AI train. I'm more of like watching the marketing of it. And I think that's where my skepticism comes. So one, I look at this agent rush and I think, are we just rebranding workflows? Are we just rebranding automation and we're calling them agents? Like, is that just a new thing because that's the cool word? I look at some of the AI marketing and some of it, I'm like, I think that's just like, they just added AI to the description, because really it's just like a whitewash of marketing. Like or I'll say like the so what being AI instead of AI being the enabler of a really powerful so what in the messaging. So there's all these kind of questions. So when I watch it, I'm kind of like, I watch this AI messaging and think, I don't know, like if I sort of buy it, are they just reframing their old value proposition, but calling it AI now? So anyway, I'd love to kind of lean in on some of this. There's a lot of people focused, obviously, certainly in the startup world. You're at Docket, AI powered company and I think people are still trying to learn, like what is it? How do we market AI effectively? What's the best way to bring it to life? So I'd love to hear your take on that. Maybe any advice you have on that, or things that you've learned, or breakthrough ahas that you've had in marketing an AI product.
Very interesting question. I mean, I think I'm still evolving my answer to it, but here's some of the things that have worked. I think one is very, like, really in a very tangible way, articulating where is the differentiation of the value that you're delivering coming from. What AI is enabling is actually a complete rethink of a business process. For example, if you look at RFPs or RFP filling, let's say for a sales engineer as a process, there are tons of companies who are like the first generation companies who had built workflows, and they've made those automation better and easier. And they've also added AI and pieces of those workflow. That's one group of companies. And there is some AI sort of embedded in all the workflows. But then there's companies like Docket and native or AI native companies, which have really rethought the entire workflow. So the workflow doesn't exist. It's like basically you've eliminated a whole bunch of steps that shouldn't exist. I mean, for example, there's a whole workflow about verifying an answer or getting, sending it to various people to get verification done. With, in the case of Docket, that step doesn't exist because we've essentially assembled all the sales knowledge in the company, and that's already, it's learning from the top sellers. So we are at a better position to give verifiability information and source tracking information and attribution information for a piece of knowledge better than any human can in the company. So I think that's where you have to be very careful, is that what's the context of how the AI is being used in solving a business problem. And that's where you kind of need to double click and better understand what is the value AI is providing. Is it really transforming the business process, or is it just accelerating it? Because SaaS was all about workflow, acceleration and automation. But AI is fundamentally about reimagining the workflow. You don't need the workflow. We have to stop optimizing steps that shouldn't exist. So it's really AI is about reimagining the process. That's where, if companies get that, and that's what we try to market, I think that's number one to explain the differentiation. But there's the second problem we're running into is there's a lot of skepticism. Will it work? Is it accurate enough? Can I trust it? And then the answer has always been, don't take it for what the marketing is. Try it out. Put it in a POC. Take it for a spin. And then I think we're still evolving the framework between how AI operates with humans today. I do believe a lot of the agent stuff is very new. It's probably going to take, I can't really estimate how much time it's going to get for it to be really, really good. But I think at least for the next year or so, I see humans and AI interacting and working together to create better outcomes. Which what that means is now you need to figure out what's the operational model between the human and the AI. And that only comes through experimentation, trial and error. So that's where sort of the market is figuring out what that operating model looks like. And through case studies and letting them try out, once that unlock is done, I think you'll see a lot more easier adoption of AI native technologies.
Got it. I like that idea of not just automating workflows, but actually rewriting the workflow altogether. And that's what AI allows, which I think is pretty fascinating. The skepticism you talked about, I assume it impacts obviously the way that we market an AI company versus where you market somebody else. But if you're talking about, so I'm writing these notes thinking about the skepticism could be sort of de-risked by having a human in the loop that's kind of, working, partnering, trial and error, POC first, that kind of thing. Do you think the skepticism also comes from a lack of trust that's feeding the AI? And how do you prove the value there? So demand-based, for example, we've always kind of had AI running all through. It's what's driving the insights of the data that's telling people which counts to go after and all that kind of stuff. But now it's even further along in that it's saying, actually, we're using AI to make it easier to use, to automate the tooling, automate the efficiency, all that good stuff. And we keep playing with this idea of a value prop and saying, there's something about the fact that this data that you've always trusted that's running demand-based is also the data that's powering the AI. So there's something, again, to address that sort of skepticism. You can trust it. These are insights you've always believed in. How do you how do you kind of address that human data? Like, what's the power of trust?
Trust is most important. In fact, that should be a fundamental aspect of your value proposition going in, because you're going to encounter that objection all the time. So the way we've countered it at DocketAI is because we've actually, in fact, that's our biggest differentiation, is the quality of data. It's with AI, it's all garbage in and garbage out. So one of the things that we talk about at Docket is that the quality of cleansing and intelligence that we're putting in the data integration layer itself, making sure that garbage is not getting sucked in and powering the decision. So the RAG system, or essentially the AI that's making decisions and producing answers for you, that aspect is very important. And we emphasize that as our core differentiation. I think anybody who's looking to use AI should actually first examine the data that's being fed into the system on an ongoing basis, the quality of that, and essentially the sophistication of ingestion is very important. And I think all buyers should examine that. So that's what we're doing at DocketAI. Is really we've actually built a whole LLM that's all about making sure that the right data is being ingested. For example, we connect data from Slack, and on Slack you could have a conversation about, let's say you're having a conversation about pricing, and you could be having a conversation about hotel prices because you're going for a trip with a buyer, versus a pricing conversation about the actual SKU of the product. Those two are different concepts, and we've actually developed an LLM that disambiguates those two concepts and does not take in the hotel pricing conversation, and only sucks in the conversation that's related to the product or the SKU that's being discussed. That's the level of cleanliness that's important to make any AI strategy effective, essentially in the enterprises. And in fact, we came up with this whole term of the sales knowledge lake, and we trademarked it because we talk a lot about how the quality of data ingestion is that's leading to the better outcomes eventually for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really fascinating. I hadn't even thought about things like those words that kind of get mixed up. I mean, somehow these AIs are so smart, obviously, like I think about like how much my phone is listening or Alexa is listening or whatever all the time. And somehow they never confuse my conversations with each other. They are able to distill out a very specific thing that, shows up obviously in my feed. And I realize that I'm being monitored at all moments by some device near me. But so I think that's really intelligent that's built in there. So I totally agree. Data in, data out, or garbage in, garbage out definitely makes a difference on the quality of the AI. So how does that flip to the way you market it? So marketing an AI product versus, say, you came from Culture Amp. Culture Amp is, survey and engagement surveys. We use that here at Demandbase as well. And not known to be an AI company as compared to, say, a DocketAI right there in the name. How do you market those differently?
Yeah, with AI companies, the biggest problem I have faced is there's a lot of noise in the market. Because everybody's using the word AI. The question is, how do you stand apart? And how do you differentiate yourself right from like the top level message perspective? And the way we're doing that right now, because if you look at the pain points everybody's solving is the same. The benefits that the eventual outcomes could be higher win rates, increased productivity, or faster onboarding times are also very similar. So that's not a vector of differentiation. So really the differentiation comes from us talking about outcomes and embedding concepts which are innovative and essentially are hooks to drive essentially more attention from the buyer to even engage with your deeper message. So for example, we're basically marketing outcomes. And in the language that we use to describe the outcomes, we use hooks or concepts that are innovative, that people are curious about. So essentially, we use a framework where I tie resonance and differentiation right in the wording of the outcome. So for example, one of our outcomes is an AI sales engineer for every seller on every deal. And here the resonance is the word sales engineer should have some resonance because, having nobody can afford a sales engineer on every deal for every seller. It's just hard. The AI sales engineer becomes sort of differentiation of the sales engineers. Part of that, it becomes resonance. And then we're trying to create some value in it by saying for every seller and every deal, if you had an AI sales engineer, that's enough of a hook to pull them in and then explain the deeper value proposition. Like, hey, you had to wait for deep product knowledge that was from SEs that was not available on demand. Now you have this available on demand. So a lot of the storytelling is really around the before and after, like painting a picture of how wonderful the world would be with an AI sales engineer for every deal, for every seller. So those are some of the strategies we've been using to drive demand. And plus, we're making some claims as well, like 95% accuracy on product knowledge or complex technical questions. Those things are helping as well. But it's a very noisy market. And this is, messaging and positioning is something that we're playing with and evolving very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that I see these, like, I almost think about this sort of, remember the old days we talked about companies born in the cloud versus the sort of like, yeah, the old school ones. I think about that sort of now, like these AI born companies. They were born as AI creators and service providers as compared to a VMware or a Microsoft getting into the AI game, like with Copilot or whatever it happens to be. What are your thoughts on where the credibility lies? If you're a consumer and you're getting marketed by the new AI product from Microsoft, or you're getting this AI solution from a company that does nothing but AI, where do you think that credibility lies? I try to think about, just how we consume products as marketers of these products. Where do people buy, you think?
Well, it depends on who the buyer is. I think there's a classic, the early adopters, and then the late, the majority and the late adopters. So I truly believe the market is like that. The early adopters want to believe. They know that AI is going to be transformational, and it really is a rethink of software. SaaS, traditional SaaS, frankly, isn't under a lot of threat, because you can really reimagine the use case with AI, eliminating a lot of the complexities and the underlying operational inefficiencies you might have as a SaaS business. So with that, so if you come with a clean slate, the early adopters want it. They're just like so excited. Every company wants to try it out and experience it. That's kind of where the most of the market is. Even like mid-sized companies and big companies all have AI GTM strategy teams, and they're actively trialing out a lot of these AI products. And where they see like good value creation, they're adopting it very quickly. So absolutely, I feel like the old guard is under a little bit of a threat right now.
Yeah. Isn't that funny that SaaS is the old guard now? I mean, you and I both been around the world enough to know that we started in like software. Like I used to do my taxes on like TurboTax that I bought from the store, like in a package. It was CD, and then it was online, and then it was software. Then I went to hardware for a little bit, but then it was software as a service. And then now software as a service is considered old school. And now we're in the world. And I hear this service as a software concept now. And so that's kind of the flip of like the opposite of SaaS, except still SaaS. And then now it's all AI. It's just fascinating. Like, I don't know. I think I just had this conversation with my husband and my kids who don't agree because they don't know any better, that I was like, my generation has seen more of the before and after than any other generation. Like my childhood was on a landline. My childhood was on a giant TV with a back. I had a desktop computer and I remember it coming out. I remember email as a DOS prompt, like all the way to now where email's obsolete almost, and everything is Slack and text and message, and no one talks on a phone, and everything's instant. I'm just like, man, the rate of change in AI, I feel like, is going to take this sort of like rate of change, and it's going like that fast. And that adoption curve you talk about, we just had Jeffrey Moore on a conference that I was on last week talking about that sort of chasm crossing, and like that the early adopters like are getting forced because it's so fast. Early and late, that timeline is compressed massively because it's just moving too fast to wait. So anyway, it's a whole fascinating industry moving into this AI space.
Yeah, in fact, two examples. One, we started using this AI-based performance marketer, essentially, and it's helping us do LinkedIn marketing. And what it's doing is it's actually listening to our call recordings, like gong calls and things like that, understanding what message is resonating with our buyers and personas that are converting to win. And then it auto creates these ads and tests out these messaging via LinkedIn. And I get to see, like leads come in pretty much seamlessly. I'm like, that would have been like 3 people and a bunch of creative processes, product marketing, and now it's being done so it's just like a complete reimagining of that process. And same thing we see with, in terms of like a new product launch. And we see that with Docket, like with the AI sales engineer, it just learns everything about a new product in seconds, and it can answer any complex question. It can fill out an RFP. It can do a demo eventually, and it can get on a Zoom call and answer questions for you. It's just like, why do I need so many people to do launches and messaging? It's just a complete rethink of how you would launch a new product. So it's just changing so fast. Even I'm fascinated, and we're trying to catch up. Like, okay, how does this actually going to work in the real environment?
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that's basically what I've gathered from my team. Not to make this like a product plug, but my team who uses Docket is like, well, we use it in legal, we use it for some of our service inquiries through CS and things. But they're like, but we have 20 other use cases we want to use it. So we're trying to expand our Docket footprint and make sure we have the budget and things, because there's so many things it can help with. So I'm sure, yeah, those use cases are sort of writing themselves quickly, which is pretty awesome. Very cool. Well, good. Well, I'm sort of overwhelmed by all the things. So with that, I will probably shut us down. I think I've given a lot of people a lot to think about. One question before we wrap up, or a couple questions. One, what's a fun fact about you that maybe people don't know, that maybe have nothing to do with AI or Docket or anything else?
Yeah. One fun fact is I actually, on the weekends, I took a movie direction and script writing class at Berkeley, and did that for about 6 months. And it was so amazing. And I recommend, I think everybody should do it. It's so fun, especially for marketers. I think they become better storytellers as a result. But more importantly, I wrote a script that I'll hopefully get to direct it and get it out there in the world at some point in time. So
that is so cool.
One thing.
Always is a side hustle, or do you imagine it being sort of career 2.0?
Don't know yet.
Well, I have an idea for a script for a Broadway musical, but I have no idea how to find like a screenwriter to actually like write the script. So maybe you can help me figure that out. That's really cool.
I think with Sora and ChatGPT, I think we'll just need to type it up, and the movie will produce and direct itself.
Well, I had one actually wrote. I submitted my concept into ChatGPT, just what it came, and it came back with a full storyline. I feel like I need someone to kind of work on the actual dialogue, but it came back with a full storyline and when to insert the different music and things like that. And I was like, oh, okay, this could be pretty powerful. So that's awesome. That's so outside of like what you do. I love that you took the creative liberty to kind of go out and learn something new.
Yeah. And then I think one thing AI cannot do today is taste. Like really, that's where I think humans still excel. I mean, ChatGPT can produce a bunch of scripts and, average, semi-average, but really the critiquing and the taste, I think humans still excel at that. So we have a competitive advantage.
Well, that's good. That means we haven't totally been replaced by robots yet. So the future's bright for that, for sure. Well, cool. Well, congratulations on that and all the success at DocketAI. And thanks so much for coming. If people who are listening would like to follow you, what's the best way to contact you?
Again, it's perfect.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. And we will see you on the next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast.